Please welcome Lars Johan Jarnheimer, Chairman of Inca Holding BV, IKEA. Lars will be interviewed by President of January Digital, Sarah Engel.
I like your selection for walk-in music.
Thank you. And I haven't used any beauty products, so
You should have left us some samples up here.
Self-confidence is
Well,
really...
First of all, you all have been here for an hour. Feel free to stand up. We can only really see the front row. So stand up, stretch, and then you're going to be off to lunch after this. But LJ, we're thrilled to have you here. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you better. IKEA, 80 years old, 200,000 employees, and yet is so well known for innovation and newness, constantly recreating itself. So talk to us, let's just start with that, this culture of innovation that you've created. Like, give us some specific examples of how you're doing that.
Oh, I think, we are in a big transformation in retail for sure. And I think we have been transforming since the day we started in 1943. What the major change to these changes is the speed of change, I must say. It is astonishing how fast everything moves. And it goes hand in hand with simplicity. You need to be keen on simplicity in the organization. But in the case of IKEA, right now then, we started to build all our stores in the potato fields, blue boxes around the cities. And with e-commerce, etc., which we didn't have, I would say, 6 years back. So we are deploying small city stores in the cities just to meet the customer. And yeah, that's what we are up to right now.
Yeah, and I've seen you have 4, I think, opening in the US. I've been watching those happen in Atlanta, Houston, other places, but you've already done this in Paris and other markets.
Yeah.
Like, how has that worked out? What do those metrics look like? How are customers responding to small format IKEA?
If we start with the profitability, it's not that good. But, part of the culture of IKEA is to test, try, make mistakes is important. And we start to fine-tune, and I think we have one store here in Barcelona which is doing a great job with a profitability which is reasonable. And I think we are aiming for one thing throughout the organization is how can we reduce the prices? And in my all other assignments, we always discuss how can we increase the prices. But in IKEA then, of course, how can we make our products more affordable? Yeah. That is the key point then. And if you apply the normal way of measuring the profitability, the way you always have done, every unit, every store, I think we need to look upon it in a different way today then. Because we see that when we deploy these city stores, the market share in the region increases. And I would say what we are trying to do is to get a shortcut to the e-commerce. But when it comes to the e-commerce, it's also big difference between the countries. If you take US, I think the overall e-commerce sales represent roughly 25% of IKEA today. But in UK and US, it's much higher.
Right.
And the biggest contributor to that change was, of course, the COVID, because all the bureaucracy was gone. So everybody could do whatever they wanted. Nobody were able to check.
Yeah.
And that was very healthy. And
I think it's interesting. We talked about the COVID impact, and you're like it was the greatest thing that happened for your business in the sense that there was no more. It was a line and get out the door. The bureaucracy disappeared. So, give us examples of that. Like how did you do that quickly?
I think one of the key elements in the philosophy is that each country are taking their own decisions. because the decisions need to be taken as close to the customer as possible. And I think, I mean, the head office of IKEA, we try to keep it as small as possible because they are just creating bureaucracy for the rest of the organization. And we are coming, the head office then are, of course, coming with directives, et cetera, but it's up to each country to take it or not.
You mentioned simplicity as part of this culture of innovation. You mentioned to me something from a board perspective, like how you all push simplicity even from a board level. Talk to the audience about that.
I think the simplicity starts actually in the boardroom. And I remember when the founder, he passed away a couple of years ago, and we are following the same governance as a listed company. So I remember when the board pack was more than 25 pages, he came to me and said, "Lars, are we close to bankruptcy?" No, what do you mean, Ingvar? No, I said, there are also many pages to explain all the mistakes. So if I compare the number of pages with other assignments, I'm also vice chairman of an airline company. That package is 450 pages. So I would say the profitability follows the number of pages, to me at least. And that's where I'm trying to connect it with simplicity. I think the simplicity starts there in the
I love that example. And talk to us a little bit about the agility needed within your organizations. And I know you have some internal ways that you go about rewarding agility.
Yeah, you are thinking about the Go Banana card. Yeah. If we see somebody who has an idea or are really up to do something, we give them a kind of wild card calling Go Bananas card. And then we get the assignment that they can do whatever they want. If they success, yeah, it's up to them.
What if they fail?
If they fail, they have to try again.
Okay.
But
they have a carte blanche card to try whatever they want.
You're touching upon a very important part of leading in an organization. People need to dare to make mistakes, because that increases the level of agility.
Okay. Let's talk about some of those tougher decisions. So on the positive side, go bananas, try something new. What happens when those decisions that you need to make to increase agility are tough decisions? And give us a couple of examples of that.
I think we to close a store, I think
That's
our
tough.
founder had to die before we closed the first store in our history. And that's a tough decision.
Yeah.
And we are trying to move people around in the organization. So one day you can be responsible for inventory, next day for M&A. And they say, how does it work? Yeah, it works normally. But we are open to do mistakes. And I think one part we saw there, when it comes to the digitalization, we recognize, despite we have the rule to move the people around in different positions, in the IT world, in the digital side of IKEA, we kept people for 25 years. So it meant that most of the organization there they learned how to treat different things before the what do you call it? The
AI?
No, the tablets. So that was a tough decision then, to move people then in there and get new people in. So, but it's a way of.
So normally, anybody in your organization would rotate to a completely different department every 3 to 5 years, but the IT team had stayed for so long in those roles.
Yeah, and I think this is the same. I look into different.
And you shifted them out.
In a way, we found new works for them.
Okay.
Because they came from the stores originally.
Yeah.
So I think we need to move on in all different parts in the organization to really have this circularity.
Right, right. Well, and in those scenarios, how do you, that clearly some of those decisions, to your point of closing a store, was a major decision for you all. How do you get people on the side of the decision? Is it we're going to have alignment over agreement? How do you go about those tough decisions? And
No, I think, it's part of the culture, to also, we are, I would say, a quite friendly company because we know that all people are contributing. And I think it's very much a team effort. So I don't see a problem. I haven't faced any major problems when it comes to these kind of issues.
Right. That's great. Well, I want to talk a little bit, shift gears to talk about technology. I think anybody in the audience is going to want to know. You all create most of your technology in-house, and what you're looking at the next 18 to 24 months, acknowledging that he told me earlier that they look at like 100-year plans. So, but in the next 18 to 24 months, like what are you seeing from a technology standpoint?
Now, of course, how long? 10 minutes before we start to talk about AI. And I think my biggest take on that is that when you ask people, they are always ahead. In this company, we are a little bit ahead of everybody else. I think you need to benchmark your effort with the peers, because I think what we have done, we started, of course, when it comes to the customer care, but that's a quite interesting example, because today I think it's 46% of the customer inquiries is taken care of with AI. It's a hard word for a Swede to say, AI technology. What we did then is that these people we released from that, we converted them into salesmen. And these people, we are guessing that they will contribute to roughly 1.5 billion in additional sales. So that's interesting.
That's an amazing example of upskilling, reskilling, and utilizing AI where it can automate the areas that you can in order to upskill and reskill. How is that playing out from it? So clearly, customers are interacting with customer service, but that's really an internal AI application. What are you all building towards or looking at AI as it's customer facing?
I think how you design the shops or the stores, what kind of product, because it differs between countries, differs between cities, difference between two stores in one city. So there we are using a lot. And I think the biggest contributor so far is, of course, the inventory part, where we have gained a lot of optimizing the inventory. We have used a kind of machine learning for 10, 15 years in that field, but we see that it's really coming up and contributing today.
Okay. With a few minutes left, I really want to talk about, you have been with IKEA for 20 years, you were at H&M for 10 years. Like, your leadership style has certainly defined some of the largest brands. And I'd like to talk about, how are there specific instances, events that shaped the way that you lead? Like, how do you look at leadership at this point in your career?
I think the older I've got, I would say that kind leaders are, to me, the one who very often show the best results. And I think that's also very much of the IKEA philosophy then. You should be, you should be like a family. When you have problem, we make sure that you have the support. I don't know how to elaborate more on that.
Well, how much do you, when you're hiring, let's think about how that relates to how you hire. How much do you hire for core values and that match to that level of empathy versus skills?
I would say it's 95% values 5% skills. And then might sound a little bit different, but in the IKEA world, we said that, yeah, but we can always learn people, but we can't change the values.
Right.
And I've heard that the values is created between the age of 5, 6, up to 11. Then it's game over.
Okay, so anybody in the audience who has a company younger than 11 years, then they still
Then
have a
it's
shot.
gone.
Okay.
And in this disruptive world, my advice to you all is to be even closer to it. Because when you see rapid change, it's also, I would say, also nurturing new cultural things in the organization. So you need to stay very close, and you need to monitor it almost on a daily basis.
How do you all, I mean, for a company that is, you've said many times just now, is known for being nice, being kind, hiring for those core values, there has to be moments where you have significant differences of opinions.
Yes.
So do you have a specific way in which you debate and argue, or how do you go about that?
You know, the funny thing, if we have the time, you know, I'm then the chairman of the operational company, and then we have the foundation above us. And Ingvar was very nitty-gritty on all the details. And one detail I actually asked him about was that he was the one who assigned the CEO, but I have to kick them out. And then I said to Ingvar, but Ingvar, this is one of the most essential instruments.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I hire them? And then he said that, yeah, of course you will be there in the process, but I hate to kick out people. So that's a sign for you, and I hire them. So it's quite easy. So I think, of course, we have, as all companies, we have our struggle. But yeah, it works pretty well anyhow.
Okay. So AI aside, we're putting AI to the side at this point. Where will your biggest focus be for the next 24 months?
I would say to get closer to the customer, we get more happy customer, and lower our prices. I think the biggest opportunity we have, IKEA has a lot of opportunity when we have a downturn in the economy. That's where we normally are able to gain market shares. And so in the meetings I have, and the meeting I have tomorrow, it is how do we reduce the prices?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned, we have just a minute, I want to ask, you mentioned getting closer to the customer. Clearly the city stores physically get you closer to the customer. They're not driving 45 minutes into the suburbs. But what does that mean from a data perspective? Like, how are you gaining insights? How much information do you get from the stores?
Yeah, I think we have something which also is applicable on the board, is that we have home visits. We are visiting IKEA in US, for instance, are visiting 5,000 homes a year just to see what they would like to have, what kind of colors, what are they missing, etc., etc. And then we have the management has something we are calling anti-bureaucracy weeks. It means that everybody in the management need to spend at least a week somewhere in a store.
Yeah.
And that can be
that.
dishwashing or whatever. They are not selecting. So the CEO was the dishwasher here just a couple of weeks ago, and one coworker came to him and said, "So you're new here?" Yeah. So
He was scooping up meatballs.
what's your intention? Maybe someday I can become the CEO. Keep on dreaming, he said. So,
I mean, it's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Thank you.
You all for being here.